I would like to tell you a story that started some 40 years ago. This story started actually when we were little. My mom would have us play a game sometimes, which consisted in trying to send information from one to another without talking or gesturing. This was called telepathy, and I'm sure you have played this game as well. Needless to say, we didn't get very far with this game. The experiments that we didn't produce many success, but it was very interesting because it was thought-provoking. Why couldn't we do this? It seemed like a natural thing to do. So I've had the privilege in the last year to actually work with a team of researchers worldwide, which showed for the first time that it's possible to actually link two brains directly, without the senses, and non-invasively. And I want to tell you about it. How did we do this? So the first thing I should say is that I'm a physicist, and I believe that just as the rest of the universe, our brains and even minds are governed by physical laws. It would follow that if the brain is a physics system, which is constantly interacting with the universe, exchanging information and making pictures about what is happening outside, if we were able to hack this system, to interface with it, we should be able to actually establish such communication links. So let me tell you a little bit how one would go about doing this. There are three elements that you need to establish a link of brain to brain. The first one is you need to capture the thought of the person who is thinking the thought. The second one is you have to transmit it over some medium, and this is the easy part, actually. You can do it through the internet, or you can send smoke signals, or anything like that. That's the easy part. The last part is especially challenging, and it consists of actually injecting the information in the brain of the receiver. You have to recreate the thought in the receiver's brain. Now, the brain is mostly an electric organ, and the neurons in our brain are constantly processing information by exchanging electric signals. So from a physics and engineering point of view, it would seem natural to try to use electricity to do what we're talking about. EEG is one such technology, and I have here a device that illustrates what I'm talking about. So this is a simple helmet that you can put on your head, and it can record the electric signals in your brain. And it's possible today to use sophisticated algorithms to decode partially, not fully, but very partially, what you're thinking. It can decode things like, I'm imagining I'm moving my foot, and I'm imagining I'm moving my leg. So that's EEG. We have another technology that we can use, and it's called non-invasive brain stimulation. And one of the things that we work in our company is called transcranial current stimulation, and it consists in sending small electrical currents into the brain by using a device just like this one. Now, if you do that, if you send small electrical currents into the brain, you are actually creating an electric field inside the brain that is interacting with neurons. And by doing this, you can modify what these neurons are doing. It's an old technology, actually. The Egyptians, as far as we know, already used electric fish to try to treat migraine in the pharaohs. One can only conjecture how successful they were. Probably not a very fun experience. So don't try this at home. TMS is another related non-invasive brain stimulation technology. It's similar to the one that I just described, but much more powerful. So it's actually able to make neurons fire on demand. In this picture, I just want to show, without going into technical details, that on the surface of the brain, you can visualize the electric fields that you're inducing through these technologies. So on the left of the screen, you can see the type of electric field you generate with transcranial current stimulation with a device like this. And on the right, you can see what you would do using TMS, which is a much more powerful system. They look similar. So, going back to our game, with EEG, it seems like we have the technology we need to extract information from the brain. And with brain stimulation, we have the technology we need to inject information into the brain. So, putting the two things together, you can see what we did in this experiment. So on the left of the slide, you can see our emitter subject, who was at India in India at the time, and was wearing one of these devices to record the electric activity of his brain. And he was instructed to think, I am moving my feet or I am moving my hands, depending on the symbol that he was supposed to transmit. He had a list of 150 symbols. The EEG system in his brain recorded the signals, decoded them, and sent them through the internet to another computer, which was at the time in France, in Strasburg. And this computer controlled one of these TMS devices, a TMS robot, just like the one you saw before. And depending on the symbol received, a 1 or a 0, would either stimulate or not stimulate the right place in the brain of the receiver. When the receiver was stimulated in the proper way, he would experience a flash of light. He would have a sensation of light. There was no light, the eyes were not needed, it was just in his imagination. And we succeeded. We managed to send a long list of symbols faithfully. These symbols actually encoded 2 words, Hola and ciao. Not precisely very deep conversation, but the beginning in brain-to-brain stimulation, in human brain-to-brain stimulation. Now, you may ask, what's all this good for? Can we do anything more than that? Just sending 1s and 0s? And the answer is, not yet today. Today, we can only do this, but there are several lines of work that we can start exploring. The first thing we should try to do is to create more complex percepts, not just flashes of lights, but sounds, sensations of touch, smell. These are the next tiny steps that we will take. Further down the line, we can try to transmit, and this is more futuristic, try to transmit things like music, mathematical concepts, who knows? We can even use this technology perhaps someday to think together, exchange information and solve problems in a much faster way. Or we can use it for more far-fetched things, like trying to communicate with other species, or with intelligent artificial systems. This may seem very far-fetched today, but I really believe that in many years, we will be able to do this by using these technologies. Even if we don't manage to do this very quickly, the same efforts that we have to dedicate to develop the science and the technology to be able to develop brain-to-brain communication systems is going to be very valuable for the development of clinical applications. Transcranial current stimulation is an example, which can be used for the treatment of depression, epilepsy, and we really need to improve these technologies to have much more control and more targeted stimulation and more control, and we need to understand much better as well where we want to stimulate and why. So going back to our game, you can see that by playing games sometimes, which kids, it's something that kids really like to do, we can actually open up new research fields. Indeed, curiosity and fun is really the beginning of science. So I would like to leave you with this quote from Picasso. If you start with a great vision, with something that seems very far-fetched, you may be surprised, because everything you can imagine is ultimately real. Thank you.
Hola, muy bien. Pues felicidades, habéis mostrado que es posible transmitir información de cerebro a cerebro. Pero esto ahora con Hola, esto tardó mucho tiempo y tiene poca aplicación.
Sí, sí. No es de gran aplicación directa hoy en día.
No.
No.
Pero ¿cómo tú ves el futuro? ¿Algún día vamos a poder usar WhatsApp a través de cerebro a cerebro?
Yo creo que sí, que será posible algún día hacerlo. Tardaremos mucho tiempo, seguramente. Pero de todas formas, las tecnologías que tengamos que desarrollar para hacerlo van a ser muy útiles y ya lo están siendo dentro del mundo clínico. Esas tecnologías se pueden utilizar para el tratamiento de cosas como la depresión, para ictus, dolor neuropático.
¿Y te atreves a dar una estimación cuando esto igual podría ser más útil para nosotros también?
Para directamente comunicación cerebro a cerebro. Bueno, digamos que la comunicación cerebro a máquina es algo que ya es útil para pacientes que han tenido, que no tienen control motora. La comunicación directa de cerebro a cerebro es algo que yo creo que puede ser útil en casos muy extremos de personas que están realmente aisladas del mundo, pero una aplicación clínica más extendida tardará muchos años todavía, sin duda alguna.
y ya sé que esto igual podría ser otro TED Talk, pero el tema de que igual así se podría influenciar los pensamientos de otra gente desde fuera, esto, ¿cuál es tu pensamiento en eso?
Yo creo que con los medios de comunicación se puede hacer esto ya de una manera más eficiente.
Muy buena respuesta.
Gracias.